Have you ever looked at your finances and felt confused about how little progress you've made, even though you don't remember making any obviously reckless decisions or dramatic mistakes that should explain the gap? Most people don't lose money in ways that feel alarming. They lose it quietly, through decisions that feel reasonable, justified, and often invisible at the moment they are made. From a human perspective, financial damage is associated with impulsiveness or irresponsibility. From an observational perspective, it is far more often associated with comfort-seeking behavior that never triggers internal alarms because it rarely feels like a loss when it happens. This is meta-intelligence, examining a pattern in which money is not destroyed through catastrophe, but slowly redirected toward relief, convenience, and emotional regulation long before its absence becomes a problem. The reason this pattern is so difficult to detect is that money spent for comfort rarely feels like spending. It feels like solving a problem, reducing friction, or making life manageable in the moment, which allows the brain to register relief without registering cost. Small purchases feel harmless because they are small. Subscriptions feel neutral because they persist quietly. Convenience expenses feel justified because they reduce effort or discomfort. None of these choices feel like sacrifice when they occur. From observation, this is why many people believe they are financially disciplined while remaining financially stagnant. Their behavior does not feel indulgent enough to question, even though the cumulative effect is substantial. Money is not lost because people do not understand math. It is lost because the nervous system values immediate relief more than abstract future security, especially when the future consequences are delayed, probabilistic, and emotionally distant. This creates a consistent mispricing problem. Immediate comfort is overvalued because it is felt now. Long-term leverage is undervalued because it is not felt at all. Consider how often money is used not to build capacity, but to reduce discomfort. Ordering instead of cooking, upgrading instead of repairing, paying to avoid inconvenience rather than to increase future options. Each choice feels small. Together they define trajectory. The danger is not the purchase itself. The danger is the pattern it trains. When money becomes the primary tool for emotional regulation, it stops functioning as a resource for long-term stability. From an external standpoint, people who struggle financially are rarely reckless. They are often efficient, rational, and well-intentioned. They optimize short-term ease while unknowingly eroding long-term resilience. This is why budgeting advice often fails. It treats the problem as numerical when it is behavioral. You cannot spreadsheet your way out of a pattern driven by discomfort avoidance. Money behaves similarly to time in this regard. It compounds in whichever direction it is already moving. Small leaks matter not because they are large, but because they persist. Most people do not notice this until their financial flexibility has narrowed enough that options begin to disappear. At that point, the problem feels sudden, even though it was accumulating slowly for years. This is not about deprivation. It is about awareness. Comfort spending is rarely labeled as such. It is framed as convenience, self-care, efficiency, or reward. These labels are persuasive because they are partially true. From observation, the most financially stable individuals are not the most restrictive. They are the most deliberate. They understand which expenses increase future capacity and which merely quiet present discomfort. A useful distinction exists between spending that expands options and spending that reduces friction. One builds leverage, the other buys relief. Both feel good, only one compounds. The cost of choosing comfort first with money is subtle but powerful. It does not feel like loss, it feels like maintenance. Over time, however, maintenance becomes stagnation, and stagnation becomes constraint. This is why people often feel financially anxious even when their income increases. The pattern does not change, so the pressure simply scales with earnings. If this analysis feels familiar, subscribing simply ensures continuity. No urgency is required. As seen around the world, the people who quietly improve their financial situation over time rarely do so by becoming more disciplined or restrictive, and almost never by eliminating comfort entirely. What changes instead is how they classify spending decisions at the moment they are made. Rather than asking whether a purchase is affordable, justified, or deserved, they begin asking a different question that shifts attention away from emotion and toward consequence, often without increasing internal resistance. The question is simple but uncomfortable to apply honestly. They ask whether the money being spent is increasing future capacity or merely reducing present discomfort. This distinction matters because both outcomes feel good in the moment. Yet only one creates leverage that persists after the relief fades. A purchase that increases capacity continues paying dividends long after the transaction ends. A purchase that reduces discomfort expires almost immediately, requiring repetition to maintain the same emotional effect. It becomes more clear. This single reframing changes behavior not because it demands restraint, but because it reveals cost that was previously invisible. When people begin noticing how often money is used to avoid boredom, effort, or mild inconvenience, spending patterns shift without moral pressure or deprivation. What surprises most people is not how often they spend for comfort, but how rarely those purchases solve the underlying problem they were meant to quiet. A simple experiment makes this pattern visible. For a defined period, track not what you spend, but why you spend. Notice which purchases are made to increase capability and which are made to reduce discomfort, boredom, or friction. Do not attempt to optimize or restrict during this period. The goal is not discipline. The goal is recognition. Many people are surprised to find how often money is used as a substitute for tolerance. Tolerance for inconvenience, tolerance for boredom, tolerance for effort. Each substitution feels justified. The accumulation rarely is. It is important to clarify that comfort spending is not inherently wrong. Some friction is unnecessary, and some purchases genuinely improve quality of life. The distinction lies in frequency and intent, not morality. If spending produces increased capacity, reduced future costs, or expanded options, it is likely strategic. If it produces only momentary relief without lasting benefit, it is likely part of the comfort-first pattern. Humans often believe they will address financial habits later, once income increases or circumstances stabilize. From observation, habits formed under constraint rarely improve under abundance. They simply become more expensive. Those who break this pattern do not eliminate comfort. They reassign it. They allow discomfort earlier in exchange for flexibility later. Some people, after recognizing this pattern, want a framework that helps distinguish relief from leverage without relying on guilt or restriction. That structure exists separately as a written implementation system, linked in the description and pinned comment for those who want it. It is optional. The reframe is simple. Money is not lost dramatically. It is redirected quietly toward whatever reduces discomfort fastest. When discomfort is tolerated long enough for adaptation to occur, money begins to function as a tool rather than a sedative. Stability increases. Anxiety decreases. Options widen. From observation, most people do not need more income. They need fewer comfort-driven decisions that quietly narrow their future. End of transmission.